Good morning. My name is Mary Cahoe, and I'm manager at the Fort Iroquois Public Health Department. We're here today talking to Mrs. Spots and Pastor Spots about their garden and about gardening tips. So I wanted to come over here, Mrs. Spots. I've noticed your garden walking in the neighborhood and really wanted to know, had a few questions about how you got started gardening.
Well, we decided a few years ago when we lived in another state that we would like to have a garden because we wanted to save money.
Okay.
And we also wanted to be off of the economic grid a little bit of always having to buy everything. We wanted to be able to produce some things ourselves.
Right.
So we started very small, and you know, you could go as far with that as you wanted. This is a good step for us.
Well, and we talked a little bit previously. This is really your first opportunity to have a really big garden. Is that right?
Yes.
So how do you get started with a garden? I don't garden at all. I don't have any dirt under my fingernails or anything. How do you get started?
Well, we decided to go with raised beds. They're a little easier to reach, so that's good when you get to be a little bit older. And my husband built the frames, and we had a lot of help. Some friends of ours who own a horse farm brought manure to us, and another friend who's a farmer brought soil, and we filled in all of our boxes, our frames, and then we decided what it is that we like to eat. What will we eat? What will we use? Because there's no sense in planting things that look good or maybe are traditional for gardens, but if you're not going to eat them, that's just a waste of space.
So do you plant seeds? Do you start with seeds, or do you pick up plants and put them in?
In most cases, we started with seeds. We have a pepper plant that we bought, but otherwise everything else we started from seeds.
Okay, so for somebody who doesn't know anything about gardening, where do you go for advice, or do I just have you come to my house and show me what to do?
Well, I don't think we're probably the best ones for advice because we're still very new at this ourselves, but the internet is full of information, and gardening catalogs are full of information, and just the descriptions that go along with each variety of plant will give you a lot of clues about whether or not you might want this tomato or that tomato. You need to think about your goals.
And what kind of setting you have. You've got a lot of sun here.
Right.
So what works well in the sun? What do you have planted?
We have tomatoes and green beans and a pepper. We had peas. Peas are an early summer. They like cool weather, so they're an early summer, early spring plant. So they all dried up. They're gone.
Okay.
And in a couple weeks, in their place, we will plant carrots.
Oh, okay.
And we have squash and cucumbers, and I've got some little ornamental pumpkins, you know, the little ones.
Yes.
And green. Did I say green beans?
Green beans.
I think that's it.
Do you do any herbs or anything like that? Have you tried those?
I have not here. I have, and they've been semi-successful, but we might add some. This was our start, and we didn't want to overwhelm ourselves.
Right.
So
exactly.
now that we know how it's going, we might add some next year.
Okay. What kind of work does it entail to keep this up? You've planted the seeds, you've got your manure, you've got all your dirt in. So what does it take to keep it up?
Probably not a lot of time, maybe a half an hour to an hour each day, if that. You got to keep up with the weeds. We've got a whole system of soaker hoses, and that's what this hose here is. It goes to the faucet back there, and so you've got to remember to turn the faucet on and turn it off. And then you have to pick the things. You know, no point in growing them and then just leaving them to rot on the vine or whatever.
Right.
So I think weeding is probably the biggest thing. Once you get your setup, it was a lot of work to get the frames built and the frames for the beans and all that. And that's our compost pile over there.
Okay.
So once you get the setup, it doesn't take much time, but it's fairly intensive in the spring. And then you have to decide what you're going to do with your produce.
Well, and so that's another question I've got. So what do you do with all those tomatoes you're going to grow and everything?
Well, we've eaten some, and we are learning how to make tomato sauce and tomato soup and all kinds of tomato products.
That you can save.
Right, and
Okay.
can, and that is definitely a new venture for us.
Okay.
But my husband knows a lot about it because his mother did a lot of it. So
Okay.
we're kind of relying on his knowledge that he picked up as a child and whatever we
Sure.
can read
Sure.
and find out about.
Very good. Your garden is beautiful.
Thank you.
And I like the raised bed approach. I might even be able to do that. Because getting on my hands and knees isn't a good option anymore.
Right, right.
To weed or whatever. So you've got your garden growing. It's pretty much full summer now. What do you do with that garden at the end of the summer? How do you put it to bed, so to speak?
Well, when everything's done producing and maybe even you've had a frost, then whatever's still there, you just pull up and clear out and put in the compost pile, so it all goes back eventually into your garden as soil. So there's not a whole lot to do.
Do you know, do you have to replace nutrients or whatever in the soil if you use the same soil year after year? Or is that in the fertilizer and everything you start out with for the year?
Well, we haven't used any commercial fertilizer on our gardens. That's where the manure came in, and the soil here is really incredible, especially compared to what we were used to. Things just have taken off like we have never had before. So the compost will add back nutrients, and we'll probably get some more manure from our friends, the horse farmers.
Yeah,
you know.
Very good. That's wonderful.